So let's have a look now. Pure competition, particularly in the short run, where a firm is seeking to determine its optimal output level, that is the point at which economic profit is maximized. And we find that point to be where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And that's an important relationship to get familiar with because it relates to all firms in all industries. That is the point of optimal or profit maximizing output level. To lay out the sort of graphical view of pure competition, we have to employ a split screen view, and this is unique to the pure competition. We won't do this in the other structures for reasons that will become apparent. But the first, on the left-hand side, this graph is an illustration of the market itself. This should be by now familiar to you: downward sloping demand curve, upward sloping supply curve, and an equilibrium price that's market determined. And so the market is the way the market is configured, without regard in this case to how steep or flat either demand or supply are. This is just for illustrative purposes. So $5 is the market price, and we said that firms in pure competition are price takers. So as a result, $5 is taken by the firm, and as a result, if the price equals marginal revenue, and the price doesn't, and there's no ability of the firm to alter its output to affect the price, then we can simply say that the demand curve equals the marginal revenue curve. In other words, perfectly elastic demand curve facing the firm, and demand equals the demand schedule, and demand function equals marginal revenue function. So the question for the firm is, what is the profit maximizing level of output? We said it's this point here. And by the way, we oftentimes in micro will take something bigger with use capital letters to denote the values and smaller letters if it's something smaller. So this is why we have smaller case letters over here, uppercase letters over there. Just sort of helps to differentiate what we're talking about. So at the profit maximizing output level here, this is the point at which marginal revenue equals marginal cost. In other words, marginal revenue equals marginal cost at that particular point. And this is the profit maximizing level of output. This is what the firm should be producing, given a market price that is taken at $5. And to look at it from a couple of other directions here, let's look at this. What if we have some point of production that we'll call Q sub A, in which the marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost? Marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost. In other words, think about what that means. Incremental revenue exceeds the incremental cost of production at this particular output level, meaning that for a certain marginal cost of production, what it costs to produce that 1 unit or the next 10 units, or whatever increment we're talking about, this is the amount of marginal revenue, and so as a result, we're getting more in revenue than it's costing us. Well, think about this, and one of the analogies that I've used, it's not a perfect analogy, but it's something like a slot machine. If you put a quarter in a slot machine and you get $1 back, you're likely tempted to do what? Keep putting quarters in the slot machine. Not the most perfect of analogies, but it does sort of illustrate the point that if whatever you're doing is yielding more marginal revenue, more incremental revenue than the cost, then you should do more of that. And so as a result, if you're operating below this, to the left of the point of tangency between marginal revenue and marginal cost, the optimal firm should step up production. On the other hand, though, what about a situation here where we're operating at some Q sub B, and here is the opposite condition: marginal revenue is now less than marginal cost. Marginal revenue is less than marginal cost. And so to take the slot machine example further, if I'm putting a quarter in the slot machine and I'm getting back 10 cents or nothing, I should probably do less of that. So I would dial down the production because the incremental revenue is less than what it's costing the firm to produce, and that's not optimal. And in both cases, the progression will be back to this point here of tangency, which corresponds to this point here, where the quantity is equivalent to where the point at which marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And then a big consideration is simply this. Excuse me, where does a firm stand in terms of making a profit? And that's the section that we're going to get to next when we talk about average cost and the issue of where a firm should be producing given the profit implications that are inherent in purely competitive industries.